Brazil is in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic and the deaths exceeded 35,000. But a different and serious crisis arises almost every day. The crimes against the environment, from deforestation to the occupation of indigenous lands to the illegal extraction of precious metals, show in the early months of 2020 an unstoppable increase. According to data from the National Space Research Institute, between August 2019 and April 2020 there was a growth of 94% of deforested areas in the Amazon, compared to the same previous period. The primary fiscal deficit of April 2020 reached a record figure of $16 billion. A deficit of around 130 billion United States dollars is expected for 2020, which represents 10% of Brazilian GDP. In the meeting ended May 6, 2020, Central Bank reduced the discount rate Selic from 3.75% to 3%. The data on the trend of the Brazilian economy in the first quarter of 2020 show a 1.5% decrease in GDP compared to the previous quarter, despite the effects of the coronavirus pandemic were present only in the second half of the March. In the second quarter, economists predict a 12.15% drop in GDP, the worst in history. The GDP drop estimates for the whole of 2020 stood at minus 6.25%, although this still appears to be a very optimistic estimate. The only sector to grow in the quarter was the agri-food sector, plus 0.6%, which however only weighs 5% of GDP. The 2020 inflation estimate is always down. At the beginning of the year it was expected to be 3.6%. Today it is 1.55%. The dollar reached 5 Brazilian reals, down from a month ago. The relative revaluation of the real comes after several months of continuous devaluation and has allowed the value lost by the Brazilian currency to be partially recovered. Despite the positive performance in the month, the market is more pessimistic about the dollar price at the end of the year, forecasting an exchange rate of 5 Brazilian reals, 40. A Goldman Sachs financial report published on May 20, 2020 gave the Brazilian stock exchange an optimism. According to analysts of this institution, the shares traded in Bovespa will benefit from a possible increase in the price of commodities, starting from the second half of the year and from a greater risk appetite by investors. Also in May, after plus 10.3% in April, Bovespa grew strongly, plus 8.6%. Since the beginning of the crisis, the Bovespa index has lost 19% in reais, 30% in dollars and 32% in euros.